Don't move to Denver if you can't handle these 14 things. Denver might look like a dream with its mountain views, 300 days of sunshine, and a booming job market, but living here comes with a list of non-negotiables that most relocation videos won't tell you. In this video, I'm breaking down 14 things that catch most people by surprise when they move to Denver. From traffic headaches to extreme weather. Let's dive in and find out if Denver really fits your lifestyle or if it's gonna test your limits. Number 1, the cold months are long and rough. So a few things you need to know about our weather here in Denver. We do have a winter that goes from about November to April timeframe, and it does have lots of cold days. So you've heard that Denver has 300 plus days of sunshine, more than Florida. It's very true. However, we also have temperatures in the 20s and 30s during that time frame. It's just sunny out too. So it makes it more pleasant, but it's still cold. So if you're not a cold weather person, this might not be the answer for you. Also, you have to understand that Denver has over a month, 35 days of snowfall during the year, where we get a little bit of snow. And some days it's a lot of snow. We even have blizzards. You know, we've had blizzards of like 6 feet and higher that I remember growing up and in recent history. With that snow comes snow days for the kids, lots of fun, but you do have school cancellations sometimes. So if you can't handle like curveballs with kids staying home at school and having to figure out work and all that, it does happen. We probably have 4 or 5 snow days per year for the kids in their school systems. And so it definitely is some weather that is not common and also completely unpredictable. You know, as I was a kid growing up, I would go to school and I would have like 5 different layers on that my mom would make me wear. And then by the time afternoon came for recess, we were all sweating because it was like 50 degrees, 60 degrees. And so the weather can change dramatically even during the course of one day. And if you want to go to a place where you can trust the weatherman and just take him to the bank, Denver's not the answer. People joke here about how the weatherman doesn't even know what he's talking about because, you know, it surprises us so much and it contradicts whatever they predict is going to happen. Also, last but not least, heating bills can be a little bit higher here, between about $120 and $200 on average for your normal size home. I would also admit, as a Denver native, that it is ugly in January and February. I think most people would agree. We do have, you know, the snowfall is beautiful, but when it's not snowing outside and it's just like brown grass before the leaves bloom and everything, and grass gets green, it's kind of ugly around here for 2 months. But it does improve as the spring comes in. All right, second on our list would be snow, ice, and hail. So we talked about snowfall and how much of that we get, but we also have ice. So when you're buying a home in the Denver area, you want to make sure to buy a home that is not north-facing as much as you can. North-facing homes get way more ice on the driveways, and it's just slower to melt. So you're going to end up shoveling way more than your neighbors across the street, and you'll be super jealous of them. And also, like, I used to have a neighbor who would use like a shovel to like pickaxes the curb ice that would dam, you know, as the water flow happens, and it just did not look fun. And so if you buy a house on the west side, we always say west is best if it's facing west. If the front door is facing south, that's second best. East is third best. North is worst. Just keep that in mind if you are home shopping. The direction of the home actually does matter quite a bit. So I always have a compass, you know, that I'm looking to see which way the front door is facing as I'm showing homes in our market here. And as far as hail goes, you know, how often does it hail? We had about 7 to 9 days on average is kind of the norm. And so you'll have hailstorms that'll come in. Some will be completely, you know, no impact because they're like pea size or gravel size hail, and that doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. But then you've got golf ball size and even bigger than golf ball size hail that happens sometimes. And when that comes, and it's usually like every 3 to 4 years in our area, it can be very detrimental to homes and to cars. So if you're driving along the road, you got to make sure to pull over and find cover as fast as possible. Or if you suspect that it's coming and the clouds are growing ominous, you know, just kind of a dark sky, so maybe you don't even leave your garage, you know, and just stay home during those days. There's nothing exciting or fun about a hail deductible on your car insurance, because you get the same car back just without golf balls, you know, dents in it along the ceiling. So there's nothing fun about that. When your home gets hail damage, you know, oftentimes you're talking about roof, paint, siding, screens, and other damage, you know, to sheds and other things outside. That can be a little more fun because maybe you can repaint your house, get a new roof that you needed, you know, stuff like that. But you are paying a deductible, And we tend to do that. I've done it twice here in Colorado. In my, I guess, 14 years of home ownership, it's happened twice to our home. We've gotten a new roof, and insurance is taking care of us. But the costs of insurance are definitely rising because of all the hailstorms that we get. We don't have to deal with much as far as tornadoes go. Hurricanes, never. Earthquakes, never. We never deal with tsunamis, obviously, because we're landlocked. It's just the hail. We're right here in Hail Alley, which is defined, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado. We tend to get the worst of it. So that's something to be aware of. Also, make sure to have a four-wheel drive car if you come out here, or at least front wheel. But rear-wheel drives are just awful, especially like two-wheel drive pickups. We see them sliding all over the place. They usually have California license plates. Just kidding. But a lot of times they have out-of-state license plates, that we're like fishtailing, and it just, like, our highways and our main roads can become a skating rink sometimes when it's icy out. And so just make sure you have a car that can handle it, and give yourself plenty of space, so you don't ram into people and have an issue there. The cold is one thing, but snow and hail, that's where it gets really expensive. And while you're budgeting for snow tires and roof repairs, don't forget what it costs to live here. The cost of living is no joke here in Denver. How expensive is it to live in Denver? Well, let's talk about housing for a second. The average home price is $780,000, and typically a monthly mortgage payment would be close to $6,000. And prices have just skyrocketed over the last 10 to 15 years. We literally had 8 out of 10 years where we had double-digit appreciation every year, from 2012 to 2022. And so during that time span, we had runaway pricing that really, took off as far as housing goes. And then with inflation over the last few years that we've been dealing with, all of the other costs of goods have definitely gone up, just like they have across the country. Renting is also expensive. So the average rent here in Colorado, if it's a 4-bedroom home, rents for $3,800. The average apartment, which is typically a 2-bedroom apartment, rents for $1,950. So both of those are significantly above the national average. Probably the biggest cost increase that we've seen over the last few years is insurance. Homeowners insurance has skyrocketed, where your entry-level homes right now, insurance can be $5,000 a year on those. Bigger homes, 3,000 square feet plus, I've seen quotes anywhere from 8,000 all the way up to 14,000, depending on where it's at, especially if you have a home that's in the mountains. Rising costs on insurance are definitely happening due to wildfires and hail. And if you're thinking about escaping the high prices and heading into the mountains, there's something else you need to know. Number 4, the altitude will test you. How high is Denver compared to sea level? So a lot of people understand that we are 5,280 feet above sea level, a mile high, right? That's why they call it the Mile High City. And so there are some effects to altitude on health and fitness. So just understand, if you're used to sea level and you're coming to our altitude, you are going to feel it in your lungs. Especially if there's an adjustment period that happens. You'll see at Broncos games, the opposing team with their oxygen, on the sidelines, because these football players aren't used to this kind of altitude. And we are the only state in the NFL that has this kind of altitude. So it's a huge adjustment for a lot of athletes. And you do see a ton of triathletes actually coming here to train in Denver, especially areas like Golden, Green Mountain, Boulder, where they have even higher elevation. Those get up to 6,000 to 7,000 feet of elevation. And then you'll even see some, like the long distance, like the 100-mile racers, they go all the way up to Leadville, where it's 11,000 feet. Breckenridge is about 9,000 feet. That's where Keystone and Frisco and some of those mountain towns are. So you absolutely have all kinds of different levels. And most of the Denver metro area is anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level. So even taking a walk up a flight of stairs can leave you winded when you first move here. I've had marathon runners from sea level struggle just jogging around the block here in Colorado. And while you're catching your breath, you might also notice how dry everything feels here. The dry climate and wildfire risk is real. I will find myself applying lotion all the time during the day because my fingers crack. I get those white cracks between your knuckles. It just happens here. We're in such a dry climate. Smart to have a bottle of lotion nearby in multiple places to stay hydrated. It's also good to drink a ton of water because of our dry climate. As far as the effect to homeowners, the wildfires are a real risk in our state. We've had 7,200 wildfires per year on average that have happened over the last 5 years since 2020. and that's way up from 3,200 per year on average from 2000 to 2003. So over the last 20 years, that's greatly increased. I don't know if we're just becoming a more dry climate. There are winds that definitely make fires happen even more. The firefighters are great. They're doing everything they can to try to keep those out so that we can save our homes here in Colorado, but way higher risk in the mountain areas. You don't see many fires around the Denver metro area unless they're isolated incidences, but most of the time those big wildfires are happening up on the western slope. So that's something to be aware of. And like I mentioned before, this has made insurance premiums spike due to these wildfires. We've had summers where the air smells like smoke for weeks. And if you live near the foothills, your insurance can double overnight after a bad fire season. And speaking of things that never seem to end, let's talk about the roads. Number 6, we have endless construction, it seems sometimes. So roads are always under construction. And it seems like there's certain roads that are the biggest culprits, right? Like our big highways, I-70, I-76, and I-25 tend to always have construction going on. We have had I-25 is kind of the main vein going north and south, and that has finally stopped. We've seen the road be widened, so we've got 5 or 6 lanes in most parts of the road now, and it's made for a lot more traffic flow on I-25. So that has been good, but other roads like Santa Fe has literally been under construction for 10 years straight. And they've been widening that road because of big communities like Sterling Ranch that are going in, more building that's going in down south, and communities like Solstice and Laviers and Sedalia. And so they've had to expand that road and create the infrastructure they need for the population growth, which is so important for our city. Santa Fe has been torn up for so long. Locals joke it will be finished when their grandkids graduate. And don't even get me started about I-25. It's a daily gamble. And if you think that you can just drive around it all, think again. Traffic here in Denver can be brutal. And if you want to know the worst traffic times, typically it's in the mornings between 7:30 and about 8:45, and then in the afternoons between 3:30 and 6. Those are the times that you want to avoid I-25, I-70, and I-76 if you can. That's why people that are working from home right now are absolutely loving life, because they get to avoid the fun gridlock of being stuck on the highway. And so trying to get from ski resorts on a Sunday afternoon can be absolutely brutal. Owning a mountain condo is so much more valuable now because of what that provides you to do. You don't have to come home on a Sunday afternoon and get stuck in traffic for 5 hours. There are literally times where they do metering around the Eisenhower Tunnel where you will be just stuck bumper to bumper for a couple hours before it starts moving. So I don't recommend coming home during the normal ski traffic time. It's like 3:30 to 6. That's when you just get blasted with all that traffic. So whenever we go up skiing, we try to get as much done as we can in the morning so that we can take off and beat the traffic on the way home. And if we're heading out by 2, usually we get home 2 hours earlier than we would if we left by 4. And at that point, you spend more time in your car in traffic than you did on the slopes. And if you're hoping to escape the city for a quick weekend trip, you might be disappointed. Number 8, you're pretty far from everything. Honestly, here in Denver, it's not like the East Coast where you've got all these cities just connected and you can go visit these cool towns and different places and history. Here we don't have coast nearby. We're landlocked. We're 16 hours from California to get to the ocean, and 8 hours from Salt Lake City or Omaha, and 12 hours from Phoenix or Las Vegas, 10 hours from Kansas City. It's definitely a drive and a big road trip to get to anywhere close by. People from the East Coast are just used to these weekend trips to other states. Here you're looking at a full day's drive just to get out of Colorado. Denver is somewhat in the middle of the state, so it's about 4 hours to 8 hours on each side just to get out of Colorado. And even when you stay local, not everything is as close as it seems. A lot of people don't realize the ski resorts are not in town here in Denver. So there's no skiing here. You can't ski at 5,000 feet, right? You got to go up the mountain a ways. So in Utah, I lived there for a little while. The skiing proximity is unbelievable, right? You've got mountains and hills 25 to 30 minutes from most parts of the metro area there. Where here, you've got to drive an hour and a half to get to the first ski resort. And then you keep going to get to Vail, Beaver Creek. That's another hour and a half. And so with traffic, those can be 2 to 4 hour drives to get up to the mountains. And so it's made it a little harder to do a day trip here in Colorado with all the traffic, especially coming back down the hill. Yeah, you can ski here, but plan on leaving at 5 a.m. and getting home after dark. Otherwise, you're stuck bumper to bumper in traffic with half of the city. And while you're budgeting for those lift tickets, don't forget this next surprise. property taxes just shot up. So in our market, we had something on the ballot called the Gallagher Amendment. And the Gallagher Amendment fooled everyone. The attorneys literally pulled a fast one over our eyes and made it sound like something that was desirable, but basically took away the right for us to limit the amount of increase on our property taxes. And so they took full advantage of that. We've had low property taxes for the longest time. But just last year in 2024, we saw on average a 55% increase across the board, across the city on property taxes. So that definitely took its toll with affordability on escrow payments for mortgages. Went up, $100 to $200 in some cases, and even more in the luxury side of things. But absolutely made a big impact as far as that goes. If you're dreaming of lakeside living, you might want to adjust your expectations. No beaches and not a whole lot of water here in Denver. So that's the one thing that I tell everybody that we are missing is more water, especially water to play on. Other areas like Idaho, Utah that are neighboring states have tons of water, huge reservoirs and natural lakes to wakeboard, water ski, wake surf, which is kind of the new rage right now. Here in our town, we've got Chatfield Reservoir, we've got Cherry Creek Reservoir, great spots. Oftentimes those boats are doing circles and you're dodging other boats as you're going through. And sometimes it can actually be dangerous. So we don't have a ton of water to play on. There are some lakes, even some lakes that used to be private water ski lakes. And now, they're preserved for the great white northern pelicans and blue herons and a lot of birds, like very special types of birds that are beautiful to look at. But we don't have motorized boats on those lakes anymore. So lots of canoeing, lots of kayaking, different opportunities to do that. But if you're a motorized boat person, this may not be the place for you unless you are willing to drive. Just 8 hours west, you can get to Lake Powell, which is the #1 lake destination in the country. So we do have that close by. Table Rock Lake is about 12 hours to the east in Missouri, and you've got the Ozarks as well. You've got the Lake of the Grand Cherokees in Oklahoma. Huge lakes, but you got to drive to them to get there. One of the huge things that you'll see in the lakes that we do have here, though, is paddleboarding. You'll see a lot of people out on their paddle boards. It's a ton of fun. Stand up, get some exercise in, work that core a little bit and your balance. I've fallen off of them many times. But it seems like that's one of the funner things to do without a motorized boat here in Colorado. Also, people love to float the Platte River. So that's another thing that you'll see happening often that requires no boat. If you're used to weekend beach trips or boating on big lakes, you will feel landlocked fast. There's just not much water here. And while we're talking about lifestyle, let's get on to the cultural mix. Politics and marijuana are a part of the culture. We used to be a very red Republican conservative state. And then in the years of 2008, in that election when Barack Obama was elected, our state flipped to blue. And it's been a predominantly, blue voting state ever since. And so that's what the political climate is like. There are absolutely pockets, especially Douglas County, Colorado Springs, down south, and some of the other suburban areas, Arapahoe County, that tend to be more on the conservative side. The city of Denver and Jefferson County going west, Boulder going northwest, tend to be more on the left side of things from a political standpoint. As far as the marijuana use goes, we had this huge influx of people moving in because we were the first ones to legalize marijuana in 2015. Ever since, it's been a lot more normalized. The migration patterns have slowed down, but the dispensaries are everywhere. So you will smell the sweet grass as you're driving down Santa Fe, kind of one of our main roads, and to get to downtown Denver. You will smell it there. You'll smell it on Broadway, all across the Denver area. You can't help but smell that at concert venues, especially Red Rocks, sporting games, stuff like that. Like if you go to a Broncos game, Rockies game outdoors, you can't really avoid it. So it is a part of the culture here now, and it seems like it's here to stay. So you'll walk through some areas and neighborhoods, and it will smell like a Snoop Dogg concert. And politically, you'll find everything from cowboy hats to climate activists. And if you're a sports fan, you'll love this next part, unless you're trying to drive. So sports are big here in town. If you're a person that is not into the sports scene and you really don't care much about it, you kind of get annoyed when people talk about sports, sports all the time, this may not be the place for you. This is Broncos country, baby. And so people are super into the Broncos. That's probably the #1 team that's supported here. Also, the Denver Nuggets, the Avalanche, you've got the Rockies, which are kind of lowly right now, haven't been good for a long, long time. But there's also that, right? There's baseball at Coors Field, which is one of the best venues to go and see a baseball game at in town. And that's kind of the star of the show as far as baseball goes, is the stadium, Coors Field. And then you got the Rapids, you've got the Outlaws, professional lacrosse and soccer team. And we are getting a women's professional soccer team that's coming here soon. So with all of those sporting events happening in town, you can only imagine how much traffic that creates in the downtown scene. So as you were passing through, we call it the bottleneck or the mousetrap around I-25, right where Santa Fe and Broadway are. They go up through the city. There's this little neck in town where it just stops, and traffic can be pretty bad through there. A lot of times 12 to 35 minute delays just to get from the south side of town to the north side of town. We've actually had times where we have 3 different sporting events on the same night, like the Avalanche, Nuggets, and Rockies all played on the same night last week. And so definitely something to be aware of. If you live by those areas, you could just get absolutely gridlocked just trying to get home. And so it may be smart as you're deciding on which home to choose and where you want to buy, to move a little further away from the stadium so you don't have to deal with some of that traffic. Game time downtown? Plan ahead, or you'll be circling for parking while kickoff starts without you. And finally, if you're thinking about making Denver your forever home, there's one more thing to consider. You'll need to be tough and adaptable. So Denver rewards outdoorsy, resilient, flexible people. You need to be ready for weather swings, traffic, and high costs. The lifestyle is active, but not always convenient. You'll see bike lanes everywhere. You'll see lots of opportunities for people to be outdoors and getting their steps in and getting exercise in. Denver is not for the faint of heart, but if you can handle the altitude, the traffic, and the price tag, you'll love it here. If you're still with me, you might just be the kind of person who can make it work here. Reach out if you're still thinking about moving to Denver after hearing all of that. You might just be the kind of person who will thrive here. And if you want help finding the right neighborhood, the right home, or the right lifestyle fit, shoot me a text or give me a call. I'd love to help you make the move the right way. Still not sure if Denver's right for you? Check out my next video where I'll break down the best suburbs around Denver. Some of them might surprise you. Click here and I'll see you there.